The moment an INFJ discards their compassion, the world witnesses the most terrifying evolution of human psychology. Do not mistake them for a Sigma. While a Sigma chooses to stand outside the game, an INFJ in their final form, the Lucifer version, chooses to master it. They don't rely on brute force. They weaponize the very intuition once used to heal and turn it toward manipulating the soul of the masses. This is not the story of a villain who snaps in a moment of rage. This is the anatomy of something far more dangerous, because when an INFJ breaks, they do not break like others. They do not implode quietly. They do not self-destruct alone in a corner. They do not simply become bitter, nihilistic, or withdrawn. They reorient their entire relationship with reality. And that difference changes everything. Most people collapse inward when life disappoints them. They internalize failure. They drown in shame, self-loathing, or despair. INFJs are different. An INFJ does not break because they failed. They break because the world failed a test. They watched cruelty go unpunished. They watched manipulation rewarded. They watched shallow people rise while principled people were silenced. They watched goodness exploited, distorted, mocked, and discarded. And eventually, a quiet conclusion forms in their mind. This system is rotten. This world does not deserve my compassion. The rules are broken. That moment, right there, is the fault line. Because INFJs do not experience disappointment as a personal wound. They experience it as an existential betrayal. They were not invested in winning. They were invested in meaning. And when meaning collapses, something colder replaces it. At first, the shift is subtle. The INFJ still listens, still observes, still understands people deeply, but the emotional tone changes. Empathy becomes distance. Curiosity becomes analysis. Compassion becomes contempt, not loud contempt, not theatrical contempt, quiet, surgical contempt. The kind that says, I know exactly who you are, and I no longer feel obligated to protect you from the consequences of that. This is where people misunderstand INFJs the most. They assume that when INFJs withdraw, they are healing. They assume silence means peace. They assume detachment means acceptance. They are wrong. Sometimes silence is not recovery. Sometimes silence is strategic realignment. The INFJ door slam is often described as self-protection. That description is dangerously incomplete. In its healthy form, the door slam is a boundary, a last resort to preserve psychological survival. But when an INFJ becomes deeply disillusioned, the door slam mutates. It stops being about one person. It expands. Suddenly, it is not just, I am done with you. It becomes, I am done with this type of human. I am done with this society. I am done playing by rules written by people I do not respect. This is where INFJs become dangerous in a way most types never will, because they do not simply disengage from the social game. They reject its moral legitimacy. A Sigma steps outside the system because he sees it as pointless. An unhealthy INFJ steps outside the system because he sees it as corrupt and feels compelled to fix it. That difference matters. A Sigma withdraws. A Lucifer INFJ restructures. A Sigma doesn't care who wins. A Lucifer INFJ cares deeply, but only about the outcome, not the casualties. And this is where the real danger begins. At the core of the INFJ psyche sits introverted intuition, NI. NI is not imagination. NI is not creativity in the playful sense. NI is pattern dominance. It compresses massive amounts of information into a single, coherent narrative about how the world works and where it is headed. When healthy, NI creates insight, foresight, wisdom. When unhealthy, NI becomes absolute conviction. The INFJ does not say, this is my opinion. They say silently, this is how things really are. And when that internal vision becomes morally charged, it stops being insight. It becomes prophecy. Here is the critical shift. Most people adjust their beliefs when reality resists them. They negotiate, they compromise, they revise. An unhealthy INFJ does the opposite. If reality contradicts their vision, they do not question the vision. They question reality. They begin to see the world as something that must be corrected, bent, aligned, purified. This is not stubbornness. This is something deeper. This is ideological possession. Once NI locks onto a moral narrative, everything funnels through it. Complexity collapses. Contradictions disappear. Opposing perspectives are no longer different. They are wrong. And wrong does not mean mistaken. Wrong means dangerous. This is how INFJs can become ruthless without ever feeling cruel, because in their internal logic, cruelty is not the goal. Alignment is. But NI alone is not what makes the INFJ terrifying. What makes them truly dangerous is FE, extroverted feeling. FE is not just empathy, it is emotional mapping. INFJs know what people fear before they admit it. They know what people crave before they understand it themselves. They know what narratives make people feel safe, seen, or morally justified. When ENFJs are healthy, this ability heals. When they are broken, it controls. And here is the crucial distinction. They do not manipulate individuals. They manipulate the emotional climate. They shape what is shameful, what is admirable, what is unforgivable, what is on the right side of history. They do not say, do this. They create an environment where not doing it feels morally repulsive. That is power most people never even notice until it's too late. At this stage, something else happens internally. The INFJ stops experiencing themselves as a participant. They begin to experience themselves as an instrument, a vessel for something larger, a messenger, a voice, a necessary force. And when that happens, personal responsibility dissolves, because now everything they do feels justified by the vision. This isn't about me. This is bigger than me. I didn't choose this. I saw it. This is where righteous anger replaces human doubt. And righteous anger is one of the most destructive psychological states a human being can enter. Righteous anger does not ask, am I wrong? It asks, why won't you listen? Righteous anger does not feel like hatred. It feels like duty. And once an INFJ reaches that state, the final transformation begins, not into a monster, but into something far more dangerous, an ideologue. An ideologue is not driven by impulse, not by hunger, not by lust, not even by power in the primitive sense. An ideologue is driven by a story they believe must come true. And once an INFJ becomes ideologically possessed, the emotional landscape inside them undergoes a chilling reconfiguration. This is where most people misunderstand what happens next. They assume rage explodes. They expect chaos. They anticipate emotional volatility. Instead, the opposite occurs. The INFJ goes quiet. This is the entrance into the NITI loop, a closed circuit, vision feeding logic. Logic reinforcing vision, extroverted feeling, the part that checks reality against human consequence, gets cut out of the loop. What remains is terrifyingly efficient. The INFJ stops asking, how does this make people feel? They start asking, is this internally consistent? Morality becomes math. Suffering becomes collateral. People become variables. And because INFJs are naturally inclined toward coherence, not domination, the result doesn't look violent. It looks clean. This is where destructive outbursts get misunderstood. They are not emotional explosions. They are executions, calculated, delayed, rationalized. The INFJ does not lash out when they are hurt. They record. They collect moments. They archive betrayals. They store inconsistencies, hypocrisies, moral failures, not consciously, not maliciously, systematically. Grievances become data. And one day, the internal equation resolves. This must be done, not because they are angry, but because it is logical. This is why INFJ toxicity is so hard to confront. They do not scream. They do not threaten. They do not plead. They explain, calmly, clearly, with devastating certainty. By the time you realize you're being condemned, the verdict has already been reached. At this point, something even darker emerges. The INFJ begins to reinterpret their own past. Trauma is no longer something that happened to them. Trauma becomes proof, evidence that the world is exactly as broken as they believed. Pain stops being something to heal. It becomes moral authority. I suffered, therefore I see. I endured, therefore I am justified. I warned you, therefore this is on you. This is how INFJs can commit extraordinary harm while feeling morally spotless, because in their mind, they are not acting from bitterness. They are acting from experience. This is also where the most dangerous narrative of all takes shape, the victim story, but not the helpless victim story, the righteous victim story. We tried to help. We were patient. We were compassionate. They refused to listen. And now we do what must be done. This narrative is lethal because it removes guilt entirely. If the INFJ is the victim, then anyone opposing them becomes the aggressor. And aggression, once justified, knows no internal limits. Now the transformation accelerates. The INFJ no longer sees individuals. They see patterns of human failure. They do not hate a person. They despise what that person represents: ignorance, cowardice, moral laziness, complicity. And because these traits are abstract, not personal, they become infinitely punishable. This is how INFJs move from interpersonal coldness to systemic cruelty. Not by accident, by philosophy. This is where the Lucifer archetype becomes relevant. Not religiously, but psychologically. Lucifer does not fall because he is savage. He falls because he believes he is righteous. He believes his vision is purer than the order that exists. That belief, moral superiority fused with insight, is the INFJ's most dangerous shadow, because INFJs do not want to rule. They want to correct. They want to realign reality with what it should be, and anyone standing in the way of that alignment becomes expendable. At this stage, Phi re-enters the picture, but not as empathy, as weaponized empathy. The INFJ knows exactly how to frame suffering. They know which stories ignite outrage, which symbols unify resentment, which phrases bypass critical thinking and go straight to the nervous system. They speak in moral language, not commands, not threats, appeals to decency, to justice, to dignity, to the future. And because they genuinely believe in what they are saying, they are not perceived as manipulators. They are perceived as truth tellers. This is crucial because manipulation without belief repels. Manipulation with belief converts. The INFJ does not rally the masses by promising pleasure. They rally them by offering meaning. You are not weak. You are not wrong. You were betrayed. And now you are finally seen. This is how collective resentment becomes moral fire. This is how crowds stop asking questions, because once people feel morally validated, they will endure almost anything and justify almost everything. Now compare this to the Sigma. The Sigma avoids the crowd, avoids ideology, avoids entanglement. The INFJ does the opposite. They enter the psychological bloodstream of society. They define the moral temperature. They decide what emotions are acceptable and which are treasonous. This is why Sigma is not the final form. Sigma is disengagement. Lucifer INFJ is dominion through meaning. And the most chilling part? The INFJ does not experience themselves as dangerous. They experience themselves as necessary. They tell themselves, if I don't do this, who will? If I don't say this, who dares? If I don't push this through, the rot continues. That belief that only they see clearly enough is the final lock. Once it clicks into place, there is no internal brake left, only momentum, only inevitability, only prophecy. Prophecy has a strange psychological effect. Once someone believes an outcome is inevitable, they stop asking whether it should happen. They begin preparing people to accept it. This is where the INFJ crosses a line most never return from. At this stage, the INFJ's moral universe collapses into a hierarchy. At the top, the vision. Below it, those who understand, those who can be guided, those who must be corrected, those who cannot be saved. And once that hierarchy exists, cruelty no longer feels cruel. It feels organized. This is where INFJs become something far more dangerous than rebels or tyrants. They become architects of moral reality. They don't tell people what to think. They decide what thinking is allowed to feel like. They don't outlaw dissent. They make dissent feel shameful, backward, immoral. You are not wrong. You are part of the problem. And once someone is framed that way, anything done to them feels justified. Notice how this works. The INFJ does not need violence. They do not need authority. They do not need enforcement. They need consensus, emotional consensus. They reshape the collective conscience. This is manipulation at the level of the soul. At this point, something subtle but catastrophic happens internally. The INFJ loses the ability to be surprised by people. Surprise requires openness. Openness requires humility. But humility is incompatible with prophetic certainty. So instead of curiosity, the INFJ develops anticipation. I knew you'd say that. I expected this reaction. This is exactly what always happens. And when you stop being surprised by people, you stop seeing them as human. They become predictable components in a flawed system. This is also where the INFJ's famous silence turns sinister. Silence is no longer restraint. It is condemnation. They do not argue with you because, in their mind, the argument is already settled. They do not explain because explanation is reserved for those who are ready. They withdraw not to protect themselves, but to let you fail on your own. And when you do, it confirms everything. This is the psychological root of the phrase, "I warned you." Those 4 words are not a warning. They are a verdict. They signal that empathy has expired, responsibility has been transferred, and whatever happens next is on you. Now we arrive at the most misunderstood part of the INFJ shadow, the belief that everything is other people's fault. On the surface, this sounds childish, defensive, immature, but for the unhealthy INFJ, it is something else entirely. It is logical, because once they have framed themselves as the one who sees, who tried, who cared, responsibility can only flow outward. If I am right, and I know I am right, then resistance must be ignorance, and ignorance must be corrected. This is how moral superiority hardens into moral hubris. Moral hubris is not arrogance. It is the belief that your moral position is self-evident. That disagreement is not disagreement. It is failure, and failure, once framed morally, becomes punishable. This is how INFJs can shame without cruelty, condemn without hatred, and destroy reputations while feeling clean inside. They are not attacking you. They are telling the truth. This is where Fee becomes surgical. The INFJ knows exactly which words trigger guilt, which phrases activate collective fear, which narratives position them as reluctant saviors. They speak softly. They speak sadly. They speak with regret. I wish it didn't have to be this way, but what choice do we have? This tone disarms resistance, because resistance now feels heartless. This is the stage where INFJs stop targeting individuals and start targeting symbols. Not this person, but this mentality, this behavior, this influence. And symbols are easier to destroy than people. Symbols don't cry. Symbols don't plead. Symbols don't complicate the story. They simplify it. This is why INFJ darkness scales so well. Other types burn out. They exhaust themselves on personal vendettas. INFJs outsource their anger to ideas. They let ideology do the heavy lifting. And ideology does not tire. Now imagine this psychology amplified, not in one person, but mirrored back by a group. This is the final catalyst. When the INFJ sees their vision reflected in others' eyes, it feels like confirmation. See? They feel it too. They know it too. I'm not alone. This is where the last internal restraint disappears. Because now, the INFJ is no longer acting alone. They are acting on behalf of something, a movement, a cause, a future. And once action is framed as representation, accountability vanishes. this is the point of no return. Not because the INFJ becomes evil, but because they become certain. And certainty, when fused with moral vision and emotional intelligence, is more dangerous than rage, greed, or sadism ever could be. Because rage burns out, greed exposes itself, sadism repels. But certainty? Certainty recruits, certainty converts, certainty reshapes the world without ever raising its voice. And that is why the darkest INFJ is not a monster in the shadows. They are a leader in the light. History does not remember monsters who hide. History remembers those who sound reasonable. This is the final misunderstanding about dangerous INFJs. People expect evil to look chaotic, unstable, obvious, but INFJ darkness looks ordered. It looks principled. It looks thoughtful. It looks like someone who has really thought this through. That's why it spreads. At this stage, the INFJ's inner world has fully reorganized. They no longer experience doubt as humility. They experience doubt as weakness. Self-questioning feels irresponsible. Second-guessing feels like betrayal, not of others, but of the vision itself. And once that shift happens, introspection stops being reflective. It becomes reinforcement. Every internal dialogue ends the same way. Yes, this is exactly why this must be done. Now the INFJ begins to exhibit a set of recognizable shadow archetypes, not all at once, not dramatically, quietly, incrementally. And because each one feels justified on its own, the person rarely notices how far they've gone. The first is the Messiah complex, not in the cartoon sense. The INFJ does not think they are divine. They think they are necessary. They believe they see what others refuse to see. They believe they feel what others numb themselves to. They believe their suffering has sharpened their perception. And when people dismiss them, resist them, or fail to wake up, the INFJ doesn't feel hurt. They feel offended by reality. How can you not see this? Why am I the only one taking this seriously? Why does no one listen until it's too late? Recognition is no longer about ego. It's about validation of truth. Next comes the weaponized door slam. At this level, silence is no longer protection. It is punishment. The INFJ withdraws explanation, withdraws warmth, withdraws access. No clarification, no closure, no second chances. Not because they can't explain, but because you are no longer worth explaining to. This is emotional exile. And exile is devastating when delivered by someone who once understood you completely. Then comes moral superiority. Not loud, not arrogant, clinical. The INFJ becomes hypercritical of inconsistencies in others. They do not attack character. They attack integrity. You say this, but you do that. You claim to care, but where were you when it mattered? They position themselves as reluctant judges. I don't want to judge you, but someone has to. This framing is lethal because it makes resistance look defensive and guilty. Then comes grievance hoarding. INFJs do not forget moral injuries. They do not process them quickly. They do not discharge them emotionally. They store them. Each betrayal becomes context. Each disappointment becomes precedent. Each failure becomes part of a larger pattern. Over time, the INFJ doesn't remember individuals. They remember types. This always happens. They are all like this. This is how people really are. Once that belief solidifies, forgiveness feels naive. Then comes trauma as justification. Past pain is no longer something to heal. It becomes proof of authority. I've been through this. I know what this leads to. I paid the price so others don't have to. Suffering transforms into moral license. And once suffering is used that way, it can justify almost anything. Then comes the victim narrative. But again, not helplessness. Martyrdom. The INFJ frames themselves as someone who tried to save others from themselves and was punished for it. We were patient. We were compassionate. We warned them. This narrative removes guilt completely. If harm occurs now, it is framed as consequence, not choice. Finally, comes the prophetic rage. This is not shouting, not fury. It is cold certainty paired with moral disgust. I warned you. I saw this coming. This didn't have to happen. These words are not expressions of pain. They are declarations of finality. They signal that empathy has been revoked. At this point, the INFJ no longer relates to people as equals. They relate to them as moral problems to be solved. And once humans are framed as problems, solutions become impersonal, efficient, brutal. Now we must confront the most uncomfortable truth of all. This kind of darkness does not emerge from weakness. It emerges from strength without humility. INFJs are not dangerous because they lack morals. They are dangerous because their morals can become unquestionable. And when morality becomes unquestionable, it stops being ethical. It becomes authoritarian. This is why history's most destructive figures were rarely obvious psychopaths. They were often idealists, people who believed the world could and must be reshaped according to a vision of what ought to be. People who believed that suffering now was acceptable if it produced a better future later. People who believed the ends justified the means. And once that belief takes root, no atrocity feels personal. It feels necessary. This is why comparing an INFJ in this state to a Sigma misses the point entirely. A Sigma withdraws from society because he rejects it. A Lucifer INFJ engages society because he believes it can be redeemed or purged. One avoids influence, the other seeks it. One disappears, the other becomes a symbol. And symbols change the world, for better or for ruin. There is one final illusion that needs to be shattered. The belief that this darkness is rare. The belief that it only happens to other people. The belief that intelligence and empathy automatically prevent moral collapse. They do not. In fact, they often accelerate it. An INFJ does not become dangerous by abandoning morality. They become dangerous by believing their morality has surpassed the need for restraint. This is the core paradox. The very traits that make INFJs profound healers, insight, empathy, moral imagination, also make them capable of becoming the world's most dangerous ideologues when those traits lose their grounding. Because when an INFJ stops doubting themselves, they stop being human. They become an idea. This is why history keeps repeating the same pattern, not with identical faces, not with identical languages, but with identical psychological structures. A person who sees further than others, feels deeper than others, and eventually decides that others are too blind, too weak, too complicit to be trusted with the future. At that point, compassion becomes conditional, empathy becomes selective, human worth becomes hierarchical. And once that happens, the descent is no longer emotional, it is logical. This is where comparisons to famous figures become uncomfortable, but necessary. Not to label, not to simplify, but to warn. Psychologists have often typed Adolf Hitler as an unhealthy INFJ. That statement alone makes people recoil. Good, it should. Not because INFJs are inherently evil, they are not, but because it exposes a truth most people would rather avoid. When INFJ idealism becomes untethered from humility, it does not produce a petty villain. It produces a system, an ideology, a moral framework, a movement. Hitler was not dangerous because he was angry. He was dangerous because he believed. Believed he saw what others could not. Believed he understood suffering at a deeper level. Believed his vision justified extraordinary measures. That pattern, not the man, is the warning. This is why the darkest INFJ is not loud, impulsive, or obviously monstrous. They are calm, articulate, convincing. They speak about meaning, destiny, responsibility. They frame cruelty as sacrifice, oppression as protection, control as care. And because they believe what they say, others believe them too. Now contrast this again with the Sigma. The Sigma is romanticized as the ultimate form, detached, unbothered, outside the system. But Sigma is not the end. Sigma is avoidance. The INFJ's darkest form is engagement. The INFJ does not escape the world. They claim it. They say, This is broken, and I know how to fix it. That sentence has reshaped history more than any weapon ever could. So what is the real danger here? Not INFJs, but unchecked INFJs. INFJs who stop questioning their own righteousness. INFJs who confuse insight with infallibility. INFJs who mistake moral clarity for moral authority. Because once an INFJ believes their vision is the vision, there is no longer room for dissent, only correction. And this brings us to the most important truth of all. The line between healer and tyrant is not power. It is humility, the willingness to say, I might be wrong, my vision might be incomplete, my pain does not make me pure. The moment an INFJ loses that humility, their greatest gift becomes their most lethal weapon. This is not a condemnation, it is a warning. To INFJs who feel themselves hardening, to INFJs who feel contempt replacing compassion, to INFJs who feel increasingly certain that everyone else is blind. That feeling, that quiet certainty, is not awakening. It is the beginning of a fall, because the most dangerous people in history were not those without morals. They were those who believed their morals were beyond question, those who believed the future spoke through them, those who believed they were justified because they were right. And when an INFJ reaches that point, they are no longer just a person. They are an idea, and ideas, once unleashed, do not care who they destroy.